Hey guys, welcome to Vanishing Gates. I'm Jay, your host into the strange, the unexplained, the cryptozoological, the downright weird sometimes. Let's see if we can actually do something live because Facebook is apparently so broken it can't handle its normal stuff. Go figure. I have not done a live YouTube in a long time, so let's see if I can open the chat bar. Because what I'm doing tonight, guys, is I am doing a pre-recorded audio episode of my interview with John Egan, who wrote a very interesting book. So let's get that going. I won't be visual on camera for too long, but there we go. But I will be watching the chat, so at least I can communicate via that. Now, John Egan has gone through a lot of strange things in his life, it seems. And, yeah. Let's see if we can go. This is all totally different. Even YouTube has all this stuff wrong. Should have fixed all this. Like that. Like that. Whatever. We'll be in chat. In chat now. Because Facebook, again, seems to have been unable to, perform. Facebook seems to have a problem with being able to perform. Especially with that giant hack they just had go through where they got toasted oats. Alright. Now I gotta figure out the YouTube guys. Sorry. Give me a second. Alright. So, please don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe. And avoid Facebook, apparently, because it's garbage right this moment. Go figure. So I had this interview with an author, John Egan. Great guy. Very controversial and interesting interview. So we'll talk about his book. And, yeah. You won't see much video, so it's mostly going to be an audio episode because I didn't video it because I am launching the audio version of Vanishing Gates here pretty soon. And this is one of the first episodes. So I was thinking I'd give you guys like first dibs on it. So you don't have to worry about looking at it. You can sit back and relax and listen to some very different things. And without further ado, I'm going to launch that here momentarily. Again, I'll be in chat. So you can hit me up there. Please don't forget to like and follow, share, and subscribe to the pages, to the channels. It's very awesome when you do that. Thank you. Hey guys, I am here with John Egan, author of Between Love and Hate, The Devil is Real. John, how are you?
Oh, very good. Excellent.
And
yeah.
So give us a little background on yourself before we get into this too much.
Yeah, sure. Jay, every time I hear of an encounter that a person has with a ghost or an angel or a demon, I wonder about that person a little bit. I'm a little bit skeptical myself. I wonder if that's a legitimate person. Are they a little crazy? Are they doing this for attention? That's why I want to give you a little brief history about my life and who I am. By this apparition I had, a small veil was lifted for a moment in time where I was able to peer in through a dimension unseen by most people. I could actually see through a threshold into a paranormal realm. We're all going to be faced with that dimension someday, that fifth dimension. No matter what you do, no matter where you live, no matter how you live, in the end, we're all going to be standing on that precipice of that event horizon of that fifth dimension. But there's going to be forces here. And for some, and I'm afraid for many, like evil forces, they're going to have to contend with. And I'm not just talking about, when I talk about that fifth dimension, I'm not talking to you, I'm not talking to a few of your listeners, I'm talking to everybody out there. Everybody's going to be thrust into that abyss, So tonight, we're going to get an understanding about those evil forces and how they'll try to manipulate you in that paranormal realm of that fifth dimension. And I think your listeners are going to be enlightened a lot on a deep level, more than they can possibly imagine right now. It's quite frightening, so I hope they're going to be prepared. This apparition is the antithesis of any apparition I've ever heard about or read about, and we're going to get into that too. I mean, just think about it, Jay. How many times in the course of history does an entity break through a dimension to deliver a message? I could probably count it on my right hand alone. When people read the Bible, there's occurrences where angels have brought messages to people. There's just not much about devils delivering messages to people. There's plenty of stories about ghosts, scaring people, haunting houses. We've all heard lots of stories about ghosts. But tonight, I think your listeners, I'm going to ask your listeners to be open-minded, be ready. I might not sleep that well tonight. May even have bad dreams. That's what people tell me. I mean, it's kind of terrifying. It's really jarring. It's frightening. That part I can guarantee. I'm not a crazy person. I'm not looking for attention. I've been given a few talents in my life that got a lot of attention. I was a best-selling author. We could talk about that when we get to it. I'm an artist whose work has been seen throughout the world. We're going to talk about that when we get to it. The only reason why I bring up that I'm an artist, because I have the ability to draw and paint anything I see right down to every detail.
Oh wow!
So if you can have a visual of what this aberration looked like. If you went to john-egan.com, and the cover of the book is exactly what I saw that day, exactly what I was confronted with, and we're going to talk about that soon too. But just for a visual, john-egan.com.
And that is a freaky picture, by the way.
It's really wild. I mean,
it really is.
It's amazing when we begin to talk about it, what happened. But just real quick, for that brief history, I was born in Brooklyn back in the day when we all went to a male parochial school, and they were run by Franciscan brothers. They were in charge. Everything was regimented back then, Jay. Before school, we played in a fenced-in schoolyard, and then Franciscan brother would come out and blow a whistle, and everybody had to stop cold. And if you were playing like basketball or something like that, all you could hear was the basketballs bouncing because you couldn't move. But if you went to go stop the basketball or something like that, that was the wrong thing to do. Franciscan brother's going to beat you. When you get home, your mama's going to beat you. So you couldn't win. You got online. You marched to school like soldiers, you know. I don't know how my parents did it back then. 6 of us kids, we all went to parochial school. My dad didn't have any money. He was a truck driver. But the only thing, back then, you knew your parents were going to stay together. The whole community would go to church on Sunday. You know, that's where you learned to get your morals back then. That's where you got your foundation. It kind of basically stuck with you your whole life. You know, the churches were full back then. You had to get there actually early to get a seat. And they even make special baby rooms back then, soundproof rooms with a glass front on it, or when mothers would take their children if they were crying or something like that, so they didn't disturb everybody in church, and they could still attend church, you know. So it was a good time. But according to studies, 70% of the people from my religion have dropped out of that going to church thing. So that's a shame. It's a different world back then. You know, us kids, we all played outside, rain or shine, winter or summer. We played stickball in the streets. There wasn't an internet, just kids just hanging out together, you know. Just to show you how times have changed, they did a study a little over 20 years ago. They asked people, how many intimate friends do you think you have right now that you can bring your problems to and you can confide in and you feel secure with? And the answer was 3. That was 20 years ago. Now, they did the same study today, and they asked the same question. Now there's an internet, there's Facebook and Snapchat and LinkedIn and so many apps. Everybody has 500 friends in every app. Yeah. But when they did that study today, and they asked them, how many intimate friends do you think you have? The answer was half of that, 1.5 people. And that's like a shame. Our technology has given us global communication nowadays and thousands of friends, but only half that amount of close friends. It's almost like non-existent. You know, it's getting to a point where who knows, you know, we won't have any friends. I mean, think about things, how they've changed. I mean, in the past, people used to fear snakes and spiders and hives. Nowadays, you know what the millennium's biggest fear are? Low battery, low Wi-Fi, that buffering circle, right? And low battery life. That's their biggest problems today.
That's
my problem was not like that back then.
That's funny.
I mean, the other problem is suicide rate among boys have doubled and has tripled among girls. I kind of believe like this technology is almost working against us, like a neutron bomb. You know, when a neutron bomb explodes, it doesn't make a big explosion. The neutrons kind of penetrate the buildings, the armor, the underground, kills everything from the inside. All the buildings are just left standing, and there's no damage to them at all. But everything dies on the inside, and that's how I feel like, and in the direction that we're going, it seems not right to me anyway. So anyway, real quick, my dad moves us all to New Jersey. I go to the College of New Jersey. It was called Trenton State College when I went there. That's where I started my career. I started working as a special ed teacher, And this is where I worked with kids who didn't have the qualities or attributes or characteristics that other children have. This is where I began to feel blessed just by being normal. You have to work with these kids just to appreciate that. That's when I felt like I needed to pay back. So I started praying a lot. I used to always pray, but then I started praying a lot more. These children had nothing going for them. I even had children in my class that had terrible cancers. Like I would give them a coloring book and some crayons, and they tried so hard to color in the lines there, and by the numbers, and some of them had some terrible jaw cancers, and they would drool onto their coloring books. I didn't even realize it because it happened so much to them. But we tried to clean it up. I had teachers' aides in the room back then, so they helped me with all that. So that's why I felt I was blessed, and I needed to pay back for my blessings, But I had plenty of time back then, Jay, because they had like a 2-hour lunch. The teachers' aides would feed those kids, so I had 2 hours to go home and take a nap if I wanted to. There was no papers to correct because they never really tested them. So I knew how to bartend. So I started. I started working in nightclubs at night because I really had a lot of time on my hands. So I started working at night as a bartender, and this is where I met like a different kind of people at night. People who were a little more wicked in a way. Not all of them, but a lot of them was. So as I bartended, there's a few funny stories. That's why I wrote my best-selling book. But just to give you an idea of what I think was a prerequisite for why I had this creature come to this house and possess this house was I met a lot of people who were out there. And I say wicked in a way. They were looking for, everything like sex and drugs and alcohol, anything they can get their hands on. And over the years, Jay, a lot of these people died from overdoses, accidents, suicides, cancers. And I felt that they died in such a state that nobody really should die like that. So I had a friend who I worked with. He was a bartender too. He was a young guy too, but he smoked and drank so much every single night that he didn't feel well. He was an atheist. He used to make fun of God. He used to make fun of Jesus. He used to make fun of Virgin Mary. He used to make fun of anything that was religious. And and I had to work with him. So I got along with all these people. But this guy, he didn't feel good. He went to the doctors. He found out he had a 4th-stage cancer. He didn't have only weeks to live. Oh. He looked like I went to visit him a few times at home because they didn't even keep him in the hospital because he was just going to be a goner so soon. And I would try to talk to him about like trying to get back to God maybe a little bit. He was in such a state that he has even had more hatred in his heart for anything like that. So then he died, and I felt like helpless for this guy. So Jay, what I started doing was I started praying to God and saying to God, in my religion, we believe people fall into hell like snowflakes falling from the sky, especially if there's nobody to pray for their souls. So I decided I'm going to line these people up, one at a time and name them, and I'm going to pray for them. And I asked God, don't send these souls to hell until I finish praying for them. For as long as I live here, just hold that back, please, and let me just pray for them, because I felt they were so helpless. I knew them as people, but I felt they would just died in that terrible state. So that's how I think prompted this creature that possessed this house. But real fast, I want to tell you a couple of funny stories about that. You got time?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so when I worked back then, I realized that men couldn't communicate that well with women. Every time.
Back then, it hasn't changed.
Yeah. So every time, like, a guy would see a girl come in there and say to me, "Who's that girl? And she's waiting for a date. Should I buy her a drink? Should I ask her to dance?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Well, go over and talk to her for me." And a lot of guys wanted me to go over and kind of break the ice for them. And I would try to do that, But then a lot of times the guys who got up on their own and went over to the girl to talk to him, they'd get shot down and go back to their stool again. And the girl would say to me, "Who's that creep? Who's that asshole?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "What did you say to her, dude? I'm talking to you. You seem okay, like normal, but now all of a sudden you're a creeper." No, she's a lesbo. That's what they all said. And I was like, no, she's not. She just don't know how to talk to people. So what I did, Jay, was I saw a problem. I wanted to solve it. So I started interviewing the women that came into. I made up this whole survey, the proper way to how to approach a woman, how to look, how to act, how to behave, what's turning them on when we're talking to them, what's turning them off when we're talking, how to react for that date, how to be a gentleman, how to smell, everything, right? So I interviewed women that come into nightclubs. I started interviewing women at the mall, on the street, in these women gyms. I left a whole stack of my survey there. I come back like a couple of weeks later. They filled them out. Women are so forthcoming with that. They just want to give me this information. So I got like 2,000 interviews, Jay, and I start going through them, and I realize, there's a right answer for every single question that I ask. Like there's a system to this. So I wrote a book. So I put all that together, and I took all the university studies throughout the world too, and I added them in the back of each chapter. So I write the book. It's 300 pages, called How to Get Dates with Beautiful Women. So I'm out there doing some interviews, right? So Men's Fitness magazine sees me. Interviews I did. I mean, I was doing so many TV shows. I want to tell you a really fast story about Chris Brown. Actually, was around back then. He's a rapper. So I'm doing all these interviews. I even did Howard Stern. He had 14 million listeners, Jay, when I did his show, and I gave him one of his highest rated shows. So it was wonderful for both of us. You know what I'm saying? So I'm doing it. So, Jay, I'm here in New Jersey, so get to New York is not bad. So once you get on a circuit and you're a decent interview, they want you to come back and back and back. So I was doing Today in New York, Good Day in New York, Good Morning America, all these shows 2 or 3 times each. But when you go to do the interview, Jay, you go into the city, you got to be there about 5 o'clock in the morning because these are all the morning shows. And when you get there, the studios are usually at Rockefeller Center, Times Square, places like that, busy places, and that's where the studios are. And when you get there, you go into what the producer brings you into the green room. The green room is where they have their bagels and they have coffee, and you sit there and you wait till they ask you to come in and do the actual interview. And in the front is a big glass window that looks out over, like I say, Times Square or Rockefeller Center, Broadway. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of people are in those green rooms because they all want to be interviewed. One of them I noticed back then was Chris Brown. He was like an up-and-coming rapper back then. He was going out with Rihanna.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, he's the one that punched Rihanna in the face or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know any of his music, but I hate that I know that story.
Everybody does, and I'm going to tell you why. So, you see these guys and girls who are with books and celebrities and actors and stuff all trying to be interviewed. And you sit there with them for a while, and then you go and do your interview, and you go home. You go back and get your coat or whatever it is. And so, Chris Brown didn't want to be interviewed. Anything about that Rihanna incident that happened? So
weird. I bet.
Yeah. So one morning, somebody pushed it and tried to tell him what he did to her and what happened. And so now he takes, well, before I tell you that, I'm watching the news, right? Me and my wife are watching news, and on every single news channel, you have to Google this, Chris Brown, who got so mad about that, he went back to the green room, took the chairs that you sit in, and threw it right through the plate glass window right out onto Times Square, right? And I said to my wife, this guy's a genius. He got millions of dollars worth of publicity. I sat in those green rooms. How many times did I sit? I never thought to take the chair and throw it out through the plate glass window on the Rockefeller Center or something like that. But anyway, that's what was going on back then. It was, everybody. It was a fun thing to do. Everybody, Men's Fitness magazine saw me and they said, "We want to test your book." I said, fine. They took the book, another top-selling books, and I tested them. And when they wrote their article, this would really help my book out a lot. They said that 80 to 90% of the people, the women that these guys approach using my techniques, got a phone number and a date. No other book on the market came even close. It was all zero, as a matter of fact, every other book. So that blew up the book, too. So I was just riding the wave. I was having a good time back then. But I still was working in nightclubs, not for that much longer because the book did so well that I kind of stopped working even as a teacher. I miss working at night, but that's basically what happened when back then for me. And I believe that when those people that I knew who were, like a little bit wicked, not the atheists, and also what I wanted to tell you was about this creature that came here. Its power of how it can persuade you, because I just want to give you an example. I also want to, there's one other time my brother died from a heart attack and he was brought back to life. I want to tell you about that incident. It's the only other time I even heard about like demons in my circle. You know what I mean? I've heard about them, I read about them, I saw them on TV and stuff. But anyway, well, let me tell you that right now. My dad, we have this a problem with our blood that runs through the family. My dad got it. He had a heart attack and died in the hospital. They didn't have really the technology back then to save him. That was more than 20 so years ago. And unluckily for my brother, he got that same blood disease. He was having a heart attack. He went to the hospital. He he's on the hospital bed, and then he had the massive heart attack that killed him. And then I didn't notice, but when I went to visit him that night, he said to me, Johnny, when I left my body, he said, I was in that sort of room, exactly like the same room, but it was like a fifth dimension that I know about now. He said, I watched the doctors and nurses frantically trying to get me back to life with the defibrillators and, everything they were possibly doing, and with alarms going off, and he just watched. He said, in the meantime, Johnny, he said, there was a dark corner of the room, of this hospital room. He said, like 5 demons came from that dark corner and were grabbing him and dragging him into that dark corner while they were trying to get me back to life, he said. But finally, they got his heart started, and he was able to get back into his body. And he was so, like when I visited him that night, he was so upset. He said, Johnny, why did demons come for me? He said, why did demons come for me when I died? He was so upset about that. He still is to this day, but he's a much different person today. He's a much more religious person. And I didn't have an answer. I didn't know why demons would do that or come. We all were brought up in our religion, but he kind of broke away from his religion about 20 years ago. He stopped going to church too. He lived with a woman. He never really married her. He had some kids, and he never gave them a religion. And I said to Paul, did anyone of your kids even recite one prayer? And he's like, no, probably not. Well, maybe God was giving you a kick in the butt. Maybe he knew they were going to get you back to life, but maybe he wanted to show you something in that fifth dimension.
Maybe.
So, but now it's completely different person now, I'll tell you that much. So, but as far as people being able to persuade you to do things, I have nephews, and like I said, we all were brought up in our church with our morals. But in life, people can come and take those the good things away from you. Like I have 2 nephews who have had their religion, went to New York to work. Now they're atheists, and then we get together for family affairs and stuff. And I try to bring them back to reality, but they tell me, look, when God sticks his head out through the clouds and goes, I'm God, then I'll stop believing him again. And they laugh at me. But people came and took their faith away, took their belief in God away,
I have this saying that fits pretty well here, not to interrupt, but I have this saying, and you're going to like this one. The more people you add to the crowd, the lower the cumulative IQ is.
Yeah, it's true, right?
I think that fits with this. It's true. Like someone in church I heard once, a pastor of a church I used to go to said this once, and he quoted it from somewhere else. So guys, this isn't mine. He said, if you take a teaspoon of coffee and put it into toxic waste, it's toxic waste. And if you take a teaspoon of toxic waste and put it into a vat of coffee, it's toxic waste.
Yeah, that's true, right?
I think it's what he said, something like that. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? If you think about it. Oh, jeez. So, but anyway, the power of people who are not that brilliant can persuade my nephews to lose their faith in God. And also, I even have closer relatives. My wife, she goes to some of the hospitals sometimes to attend to some of these women there. So there was this one woman who had this terrible MS who couldn't really move at all. She would bring her like food and feed her, and then buy her some like nice clothes and stuff like that. And bring her here. They had to bring her here on a special van in a wheelchair and stuff. Just for lunch, just to get her out of these hospitals and stuff. And while my wife was talking about that, a relative of mine said, these people are better off dead. And I was thinking, wow, that's amazing that somebody, we all weren't brought up like this. But somebody came and took her compassion from her. You know what I mean? They persuaded her that compassion for these people is no good. But people can actually do that. It's just amazing to me. I have nephews who were heroin addicts. People came and persuaded them. These are educated people that heroin was a good thing to do. Now they're suffering for it the rest of their life. They're in and out of those rehab places, trying so hard not to use these drugs. They've had to be, like a couple of times, had to be brought back to life with that medicine they give you when you overdose, It's just amazing how people can actually persuade you to do the wrong thing. And that's why I want to talk about how powerful this creature was who came here, and how it can persuade you to do the wrong thing, not just here, but in that fifth dimension of that next dimension that we're going to all step into. Yeah, so that's it's one of the things that I learned about. So yeah. So if you want to start, we could probably maybe start talking about that.
That's a good background there. Let's get into kind of the scenario when you first encountered this entity. It sounds like you're a very devout and prayerful person, and that's usually, I found, when something spiritual seems to happen, whether it's good or bad, is when you're devout and being faithful and being prayerful quite a bit. So was that your situation, or was it more of a down and out? Why don't you just go from the beginning of when the encounter first happened?
Yeah, well, what happened was, like I said, I pray every single day for about an hour and a half. And I pray every day. I never forget these souls who I met in my life, who died in a terrible state, who died not even atheists, not even believing in God, making fun of God. I mean, I don't know how, like, that friend of mine who died, who I worked with, made fun of God. I'm like, how are you going to get into heaven now? Living that way. How is he going to let you in? I don't know. I just couldn't. It's like mind-boggling. I felt helpless, you know what I mean? Other than that, I knew that if these souls are going to hell unless somebody prays for them, I don't know who's going to pray for these particular people that I knew. They didn't seem like they had really tight-knit families or something like that, you know. Mm-hmm. But I will. But I don't think, there's other souls out there. There's got to be so many. Nobody's going to pray for us, so I don't know how they're going to get in where they want to go, because they don't want to go where I saw anyhow. So that's what I did. So everything was going fine. I mean, I live here in New Jersey. I should explain this house to you, because I want to explain how because this creature had a methodology, believe it or not. It had a methodology of, it had a method. It's like unlike any apparition I've ever heard or read about. It's the antithesis of any apparition I've ever heard or read about, because when we get into it, I think you're going to understand. So I live in New Jersey. I live on like an acre of property. I have a house that's built on a hill. So there's a long driveway, about 130 feet, and then you pull into under the house. And the garages are under the house, and the basement is under the house. So I have 3 boys that lived here with me and my wife and 3 boys. And as they were growing up, they got a little too big for their rooms, they felt. So I finished the basement off, and I cut it in half, and I made a little apartment down there, so the boys could, like, the biggest boy, he could come in, Louis, his name was, he could come in with his car into the garage and walk in. He has his own, like, entrance, into his own space downstairs, his own apartment. So that's how the house is. And upstairs there's steps that go into the kitchen, and then alongside the kitchen is the living room. And in there, it's like a sectional couch like everybody has, and that's where I kind of sit and I meditate and I pray every single day. So one day, I mean, as I said, everything was going fine for years. I never had a situation like this to ever have to deal with. I'm sitting there, Jay, mm-hmm. and there's a metal door between the garage doors and the basement. And I could kind of hear that. I mean, the house is open floor plan. There's cathedral ceiling, so you almost hear everything that goes on in the house. Almost, I could almost hear down the steps and that metal door of something. But I heard, I'm just by myself, and I hear the metal door slam like it's never been slammed before, harder than my wife couldn't even possibly slam the door that hard. And maybe my son could. My third son was here. It was only the other 2 boys have graduated college and got jobs. And Johnny, he graduated college, but he had a good job. But he wanted to come back to start his own business. And it's like plenty of room here, because my wife had that empty nest syndrome with nobody's home, And I was like, yeah, come on back. He moved out since then. So he came back and started his own business there. So he lived here. So I was thinking, wow, what could that? Has Johnny came home like that, or did his girlfriend break up with him, or did he have a car accident or something? What would make somebody so upset? So I get up, I go look down. I can see down the basement steps, but usually when he comes home, he turns the lights on. So the lights are off down there. Yet I know that basement door slammed. So I go downstairs, I turn the lights on. I don't see anybody there. I look under the steps. I go into his apartment, like when he's home, I see that the lights are on in there, but the door is still open and it's still dark in there. So I turn all his lights on. I look everywhere in his closet, under his bed. I look in the furnace room. I look everywhere where, if a person came in, I felt something like sinister, menacing, or ominous. The only word to describe it is like evil. Something inauspiciously evil. I just felt evil, a presence of evil. But I didn't know at the time, Jay, what was going on. And I'm telling you, this had a methodology, so I'm going to try to explain that to you too. So I come back upstairs. I have a camera system in the office. So I look in the camera system. I look, I roll the cameras back and around, and I look on the property 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. Nobody was on the property. I look where the cameras face the garage doors. The garage doors for where the cars come in, they didn't open. There's another door on the side of the garage that you can come in just as a person if you're not with your car. That was never open, so nothing came in that way. So I really felt unsettled. I thought I felt something terribly evil. So that's how it all began. I didn't know it at the time, Jay, but this creature, he didn't come here for like passing through. It wasn't a social call. This was his methodology of showing me that he was here. So my wife comes home, and she already immediately feels an evil presence in the house. And she goes, something's wrong with this house. It just doesn't feel right. So I didn't want to say anything to her because I wasn't positive, Jay, at the time, and I didn't want to say anything because I'm not going to just scare my wife and say something that I'm,
By the way, honey, there's a monster in the house.
Yeah, it's a demon. Yeah, I didn't want to say that. And then go out and play golf somewhere or something like that. We were home class. You know what I mean? So I just like, whatever. I didn't know what to do about it. I don't think anybody really knows. So we're there. So then now we're together sitting on the couch. I forgot to say. When after I checked everywhere and checked in the cameras, I sat there and I'm thinking, well, I don't know what this is. And then we have like wooden steps that go from the basement into the kitchen. And you could hear when somebody walks on there, but this thing was walking, like crushing those steps, like something really heavy was crushing the steps. So again, I get up, I go over, I look down, I turn the lights on over the steps, I look down, and there's nothing there. So this is even more like unsettling for me. It's never happened before in this house. You know every noise. Even my wife said that, and I'll tell you what she was saying later. She said she knows every noise, and better than I do as a woman. They're more attuned to that kind of thing. So I don't say anything. She comes home. We eat and stuff like that. We're sitting on the couch. Johnny's still not home yet. All of a sudden, we both hear this thing crushing the steps, walking up the steps very slowly, walking up the steps. And she says, "Is that Johnny? I didn't think he was home yet." And she goes, "Johnny," like that real loud, "Johnny." And she gets up off the couch. She walks through the kitchen, looks down the stairs. There's nothing there. She goes, She goes, "Did you heard that?" And I go, "Yeah, I did hear that." She goes, "That was somebody walking up the steps." I go, "Yeah, it sounded like somebody walking up the steps." "Well, there's nobody there," she says to me. So I go, "Well, I don't know what to tell you really." So we're sitting there again. And then we could hear there's a long hallway behind me that go down to the bedrooms, and it's tiled. So you could hear something very heavy crushing those tiles, walking really heavy on them, then like scratching both sides of the wall. And then when it gets to the end, it takes one of the bedroom doors and just slams it really like shut like that.
Oh, jeez.
So so she was like, very worried about this and asking me what I think it was, and I said I don't know, because I really didn't have an answer at that point, but and I didn't know it at the time. This was its method of now telling Lillian he was here. You know what I mean? That's how I didn't realize these creatures had like I said, a methodology. They do things. They're not stupid. I'll tell you that much, and I'll tell you why when we finally get to the actual apparition. So now we're dealing with this, and Jay, one of the really weirdest things, scariest things of this was, when you're in your bedroom, you lock the door. Your doors are locked from the outside. You feel secure. Lights are out. You feel secure, right? Most people try. You think so? I mean, in the middle of like 3 o'clock in the morning, there's this breathing noise of like a water buffalo, kind of deep breathing of something like almost like an animal kind of thing breathing over me. That wakes me up. It wakes my wife up. She turns on the lights. "What is that?" she said. "It sounds like some kind of water buffalo breathing in here, like right over you," she's saying, because she's right next to me. I have no answer for this, Jay. I don't know any guy would have an actual answer for this. So it goes on. But the other thing I want to tell you is, let me tell you what happened with Johnny. Okay, so now this thing, it used its methodology on me, on Lillian, and now we have a beach house. So on the weekends, this was last summer, so we go every summer we go down to the beach house for the weekend, and family comes down to meet us, and we have a boat down there and stuff. We hang out for the weekend and stuff. It's fun. Sometimes Johnny comes with his girlfriend. This time he was home by himself, so he calls Lillian and says, "Are you both of you down at the beach house?" And my wife says, "Yeah, we're both down here." He goes, "Well, something's in this house, he says. So when I'm downstairs in his apartment, he says, I hear something really heavy walking around upstairs and doors slamming, like the bedroom door slamming. He says, and when I go upstairs to investigate, I hear it downstairs now. He says, I hear my bed door slamming. He has a glass closet sliding door. He hears that's slamming back and forth, like, violently. He goes, what is that? So my wife says, I don't know. We'll talk to your dad when we come back up. And she says to me, when we get home, we're going to have to talk. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know about what, but, what are you talking? I don't have a solution for this.
You guys, you and your wife had already had these encounters in the house.
Yeah.
And now your kid's home, and he's having them. You guys didn't tell the kid, hey, there's something going on in the house.
No. Well,
good
when
grief, John, you're mean.
I didn't want to, how do you tell somebody that just leave them,
No.
Well, you know what, the thing was, Jay, I didn't invite this creature here, so I felt okay about that. I didn't have a seance or Ouija cards or any of those things that people do, and I don't advise anybody trying to do that, tarot cards or Ouija board, because once you do, you're inviting this creature to actually do harm to you. So I didn't fear that part right now. Okay. So I told, we'll talk when we get home. We're going to talk. So I came home. After the weekend, we came home and sometimes we would be having dinner together because he would come up and have dinner with us. That was one good thing about having somebody come back. My son come back here to live. At least it's not just me and my wife having dinner in this big house. We just have, we have somebody to keep us company. But I mean, the thing is, three people can't have the same, even two people can't have the same hallucination at the same time, no matter what it is. You could ask any psychiatrist in the country today. If we all three of us were having a reaction to some medication we took, we wouldn't have the same exact hallucination like this. If all three of us were on LSD at the same time, we still would not have the same exact, hallucination. Yeah. If we all had a disease that gives you hallucinations, we wouldn't have this exact one, because we could be eating dinner and then we'd hear the same noise of this thing crushing the steps, coming up the steps again. And we'd all hear it at exactly the same time. So it's not like it's not like this was an hallucination for me, or all three of us had the exact, at the exact same time, the exact thing of what we heard. So it was real. And it was letting us know it was here and it was possessing the house. So that's the beginning of it. This went on for weeks. Oh, so my wife said to me, okay, we're probably going to have have a priest come here and do an exorcism. And I was like, geez, that doesn't, I don't know. I'm hoping this thing would just go away, I'm like, and we know the priests over here at the church. We've been going there for 20-something years. They're good friends of ours. They come here every spring for a little garden party outside. They come here for dinner. They come here for little meetings with my wife's church group, and they know us as normal people. Now I got to go over there and tell them, hi, guess what? Some demon is possessed in my house, and I look like an idiot, and I just couldn't do that either, So I thought there must be some other kind of a solution to this. Maybe it'll just go away. I was hoping,
It's like it's a lion. Well, close your eyes, and maybe it'll just leave us alone.
Exactly. Yeah. So when and for now a month now, and still I'm not sure what solution is. So I went on. I do what I normally do. I sit in my I do pray in the morning. I do in the afternoon. I say most of my prayers, and I sit on the sectional couch over there. And because I'm a Catholic, I pray most of the time on the rosary. So there's one particular day, right in the middle of the day. I'm sitting there. I say my prayers. I take my rosaries. I have a little glass table next to me and with a lamp on it, like most people probably do. And I put my rosary beads down over there for a minute. I'm thinking, what should I do? Get something to eat or something like that. And then Jay, between that middle glass table and the wall, which is a pretty big area, that whole area starts to ripple, like if you threw a rock through water. You know how that rippling effect happens? Yeah. So I see right next to me a big area is starting to ripple. And I thought it was like I'm having a problem with my eyes. So I'm squinting and I'm trying to, but I still see a rippling right in the air, and then that rippling turns into a giant wall of blue flames. And I'll try to explain this to you. Most of this is unfathomable, but it was a giant wall of blue flames. And most flames I have ever seen in my whole life were red. I didn't know what I was looking at this point. So I'm still sitting there. And now I'm like on the edge of the seat looking right at this wall of blue flames. I mean, it was a blue flames that didn't have a noise to it. It didn't, like smoke wasn't coming from it. It wasn't crackling noise like something was burning. But it was a roaring fire. But it wasn't roaring, though. It was just blazing fire. But I came to realize that, we have fire too on Earth here, and that's, it's beneficial. It's like a miracle in itself. It's, you cook with it, it keeps you warm. You could forge two different steels together, and that third steel is even stronger than the two that you put together. And that's like a miracle in itself. This was a miracle too, this flame. This was a miracle of chastisement. That's what I realized after a while. So I'm sitting there, and slowly, Jay, these protrusions start to come through the flames. and the first thing that came to my mind, and I guess I was a little bit in shock, I would imagine, was coral. They looked like long pieces of coral, just slowly coming through the flames. And that's when I started. That's when I got up, and it came in slowly. Jay, like, if you ever gone to a board meeting, and all the subordinates come in, they got their notes, they're fixing their ties, a little nervously looking through their notes. Everybody's there on time. The women are fixing their skirts and their notes and stuff like that. And then the CEO walks in, and he owns the room. I don't know if you ever experienced that.
Nope.
Well, that's what they do. They're big and powerful. They own the room. They come in whenever they feel like it. They take the superior seat. They sit down. They start whenever they feel like it. Everybody else has to just wait. You know what I mean? That's how this creature entered this house, like that. And it entered through this. So it's coming through very slowly. Finally, it comes all the way. It's only his head got through. And I was very happy about that, Jay, because I felt that it couldn't go any further. So it just was this big head, and all these horny things coming out from his forehead and the top of his head, it just was. It had black eyes, and it was staring at me confrontationally. So the top of his head was like, because I wanted to memorize this. I wanted to burn this image into my head, because I knew I'm an artist, and I could depict this exactly what I saw if I lived through this. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, So I was trying to burn this image into my head as much as I can. I looked at every single inch of it so I could remember exactly how to draw this if I ever have a chance to do this at some time. And I stood there, confrontation, just looking me straight in the eye. So now it's only head. And I always thought, I read in the Bible that, and this creature, I believe now, this was created before time began, before the earth and the universe was created. That's when time started. That's when God started the clock. Before that, there was no time. That's when I believe this. When you read the Bible and God created these angels, the third of them broke away. I believe this now. A few of them were so convincing and persuasive that they persuaded a third of the angels, who were probably close to God, to leave there and start something on their own. So they broke away from there. And this thing was able to convince these angels, and it probably was a beautiful creature back then. And now it is a creature. So it probably was beautiful then, but it lost its beauty when it broke away from God. And so that's what I believe now. So then now it's a creature-looking thing with horns coming out of the front of his head. There's so many unfathomable things. First, the other thing I was like, Jay, if I committed a crime and I was sentenced to prison for life, and I didn't do it, and let's say you came to visit me there, I'd be like, get me out of here. I don't belong here. I didn't do this. You know what I mean? I would tell anybody that who came to visit me. But this creature, he owned the fact that he was in this chastisement, this big place where it was a full wall of blue flames. He owned it. He seemed like it was just to him. For him, it seemed just. It seemed like that's where he exists now, and that's the way it's going to always be. Like he deserved the punishment. Then I realized this blue flame, I was so fixated, not only on him, but this wall of flame. And I realized this is God's burning detestation for sin. And I thought that these demons were sent to hell. Why are they roaming the earth? I used to think that way before I even had this encounter. And I realized this creature, he's still in hell. He just brought his hell with him. He was able to manipulate a fifth dimension somehow. We live in a fourth dimension, length, width, height, time. That's our dimension. We all mastered that. We're born into it. We're going to die from it. This thing was in the next dimension. This is as close as I've ever gotten to seeing an actual fifth dimension. So now I have this creature here. He's when I was looking at this blue flame so much, first thing it said to me was no more, like that, no more. And I didn't question what it said. I didn't ask him any questions. I didn't want to have like a confrontation fight when it was already confrontation. I could see it was like a 100% hatred. I could see it in its being, like every fiber of its being was hatred. I could see it in his eyes. His eyes were black. There was no like pupils or anything like that. It was just pure black. It was totally confrontational. Like when two guys talk to each other, they kind of talk on a little bit of an angle. This thing was like straight right in my face, and I could see it was 100% hatred. So that bothered me a lot. But I could see it only could go up to its neck. I felt like this was a gift afterwards that I received, because it wasn't here to harm me. Now I know why. It, like any of these souls are supposed to be coming to hell, it doesn't want anything to stand in the way of that. Like anybody like me trying to pray for these souls so they don't go into hell. Well, if they're coming in his direction, he wants them, and he wants every single one of them. I could see that. And I said he was like a 100% hatred. His empire was just built on hatred. It wasn't like, if you have to go with this creature, you're not going to be your, jovial self, drinking beers and smoking and stuff like that. You're going to have to become, you're never going to be able to exist with this. I could see that. You're never going to be able to exist with this creature unless you become like it. You're going to have to become 100% hatred. So I tell people, like, anybody I can, don't leave this earth with hatred in your heart for, like, even your brothers or sisters or your neighbor, any race, religion, or nationality. Get that out, because once you leave here with it, this creature is going to teach you how to use that hatred to alleviate all your pain. I could see that. I could see how this thing was intelligent. I said it had a methodology. It really had a system. It wasn't like what you see on TV. You see, anytime you see like something like this happening on TV, like this wind and lightning and roaring of animal noises and chairs flying around. This is, like I said, it's the antithesis of any kind of an apparition I've ever seen or heard about. It was intelligent and powerful. It was so powerful. I mean, it looked like it had the power of a lion. If it could break through that wall of blue flames, it could, like, with those giant protrusions coming out of its forehead, just ram me right into the wall with them. I could see that. It would probably like to do that. It chose every word it said fastidiously, with care. So it told me that, because I was looking at him, I wanted to see, but I could see that, Jay, when he spoke, like, when you're talking to somebody, especially if they're going to be that confrontational and you're looking right in their face, you kind of look at their lips. It had lips. I mean, I want to get into that too. It had a nose and it had lips. I don't know why, but I guess that's what it is. I don't know what it's breathing down there, but so when it moved its lips, it didn't, like, the words that it said didn't really coincide with what it was able to. It was like, had some kind of intelligent enough to get me to hear a translation of whatever language it speaks. I guess it just doesn't speak English. It must speak every single language, or its own language or something like that. But I was able to understand it in English. And when he said no more, I understood that. I didn't want to ask him about it. I thought maybe the first thing I thought was no more prayers. Then I thought, oh yeah, it must be no more praying for those souls, because that's what this creature was after. It didn't want me to, stop any of that in between. It also told me, when I was looking at the fire, he said, only your spirit could feel the effects of this type of a fire. And that made a lot of sense to me, because it was a blue flame. That was like a miracle in itself. It wasn't burning anything. Like, I'm sure nobody in hell is going to keep feeding this fire. It's like I said, God's detestation for sin. It's a chastisement that they're in. It's, we have our fire, they have their fire too. So I tell people, don't leave here with any hatred in their heart. Hatred's going to weigh you down. You can only fly if you take yourself lightly. So don't go there. So it also said a few other things. So it said that, and it didn't, like I said, its face was, well, let me try to remember all the things it said. It said to me, which I thought was maybe a threat. I wasn't sure. It said, I am many, and many more wicked than I. So I thought maybe, is this thing trying to tell me this is like one of the business I'm going to get, and the next one might be even more wicked. You know what I mean? Or it might be worse. Like this wasn't that bad.
Like
I mean, it didn't.
Satanic Christmas story kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it was so smart. I told you it had a methodology that it didn't. When like this apparition didn't want me to run out of the house. Like if it came in like you see on TV, all the screaming and yelling, and I probably would have ran out of the house. I'm sure, but it didn't want me to. It wanted me right there. It wanted to deliver its message. So it knew exactly how to do that. You know what I mean? This was an intelligent creature. It was, like I say, it was created before time began. It wasn't created like a little baby or something like that. They were all created. It wasn't like adult angels teaching baby angels, whatever they needed to know. They were all just created by God in one shot. And they have all their power and all their, this intelligence. And they have so much power. I could see that. But then, I guess when they broke away, they turned into like this creature. And this creature was like one of those hierarchy kind of demons down there. Because the ones that my brother saw, he said they were smaller ones. And they didn't have like horns or something like that. This thing really had a lot of that coming out of his head. Like I said, the top of his head looked like a horseshoe crab. And Jay, it had like a face. Exactly what I drew. It had a face. Like the things that are unfathomable is the fact that it could be standing in a giant raging wall of blue flame, and yet its skin wasn't burnt. Like flesh would burn.
Yeah.
If it was something was. So these are things that I can't explain. When it spoke, it moved its face like a person would, like it had like maybe, I don't know what. It's so hard to explain these things, but it did have like a face, and it had a nose and a mouth, and it had black eyes, and so it's there. It's so there, and it's so ready for the souls that is supposed to come in its direction. It doesn't want anything to stop it from that. And then I believe now, they're prepared to offer you interesting options. Like when we leave this earth, this fourth dimension, and we step into that precipice, I said, of that fifth dimension, and our souls go through the fifth dimension. There's not going to be any time when we're in there, and we're going to be met, especially if we broke away from God. I don't think he's coming and running for you. Like I said to my brother, you broke away from like 20-something years ago, and you did die, and you did leave your body, and God didn't come running for you, or Jesus didn't come running for you, because you didn't have a relationship with him, and you have to keep that relationship going. I tell everybody, whatever religion you have, go back to it and find out how that religion gets you closest to God, and just go on that track, because I feel like the world is like heading in such a wrong direction. Like pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry today. Sex trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry today. Suicide rate is up, like we discussed earlier. Yeah. There's so much hatred and so many wars brewing in so many countries out there. That's how this thing wants it. That's how it gets its souls, by all these people who hate each other so much, And even if you're not even sure, I believe in this fifth dimension, you're going to be alone. Number one, like I was alone, but I wasn't a spirit. I still had my flesh and blood, so I wasn't that frightened, because. And the other fact is that hell is like, I always thought, like, Jay, hell was like so far away somewhere. Like I didn't have any clue where it might be, but it was right here. Like when it manifested itself in that dimension, it was like right here in front of me. I could have just taken one step and be there. It's like so close. It's not like so far away as people think. It's just, it could be right there when you die. You know what I mean? Just waiting for you.
Yeah, it's more overlapping. I think it's the multi-universe theory too, is the overlapping worlds. And I think that's a pretty good way to explain that, the way you're talking about it. Take one step and you're there. It's because it's already everywhere at one time, but not here at the same time.
Yeah, really. So I want people to know that when you die, especially if you don't have a relationship with God, you're going to be into this dimension, right? And you're going to be alone. Like there's not going to be support, but you're not going to have lawyers, you know what I mean, and try to help you through this. You're going to be alone. And you're going to be like, maybe these demons that got my brother Paul are going to bring into this like hierarchy demon that appeared in my house here, and he's going to start. As people can persuade you to be an atheist and do drugs and lose your compassion for everybody else, this thing is going to persuade you about coming in where his realm is, his dynasty, his empire. He's going to bewitch your spirit. I can almost guarantee that. They're intelligent enough to do that. We're not that smart compared to these things. They have many wiles and deceptions they're going to use on you once you become this your spirit of yourself, They know how to seduce, beguile your soul. So you're going to have to not get into this situation where this creature is going to be. And like, I never would have believed it, Jay. I was a skeptical person before this. And I read those stories in the Bible, and you think it's, okay, there's no other, maybe it is true. Maybe it's not. I wasn't sure. I kind of, now I'm positive, absolutely 100% positive that there's a creature that is 100% hatred just waiting there at the gates for you. You know what I'm saying? And so do the right thing. So I took this as a gift. I didn't know it at the time. It had a method. Like I told you, it when it came here, it didn't come here for a social call. It wasn't passing through. It had a gender. It showed me it was here in its way. It showed my wife it was here, and it showed Johnny it was here. You know what I mean? It made his presence known. It's here, and he's up to something, but we didn't know what it was, and I didn't know what it was. So don't let me forget to tell you what it did before it left and how I got it out of here. So that's one of the biggest messages I wanted to tell people about this apparition that I had, and that it is so real, and that it is the thing that it could be okay with. That's the thing that we have to fear about God. This thing is going to be there forever. We have to love God, but we have to fear his power. He has the power to send this creature and any one of us who don't want any part of him into this chastisement of this big wall of blue flame forever and never even think twice about us. That's the power of God that we have to fear. I don't know how you can. It's mind-boggling to think that a person who was a person on this planet can go in with this creature and have to exist there with him forever. It's just like so mind-boggling. You can almost go crazy just thinking about that idea. So that's so important that, remember, don't leave here with hatred in your heart. There's so much of it today. We just have to get it out. Because that's all it's going to be there. For eternity, you're going to live with people who hate you. You want to go the other way, where people who are forgiven their brothers and sisters, or their neighbor, or any race, religion, and color they kind of hate. You want to be with people who are able to forgive. You know what I mean? Because you're going to be with people who can't forgive, who hate, and they're going to probably hate each other for eternity too, in that empire that these creatures, kind of exist in. They own it. It's amazing. So let me forget to tell you what it did before it left anyway. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's. So this has to come to a precipice because I'm sure you're not still going through all of this.
What now?
I'm sure you're not still encountering this creature currently, are you?
Oh no, thank God. No, okay. I'll tell you about that too. So, no, I still think about it. I still dream about it. I etched every single thing about this creature into my mind. I burnt the image into my head, because if you went to john-egan.com, you'll see the cover of the book. That's where you could buy the book. It's an e-book. It's 350 pages. It teaches you all about this apparition that I had, and many other things, and also how to live, because I wanted people to learn how to live and know who they are and know thyself. That's so important, to know yourself. All these people that I knew who died didn't even know who they were, why they were here. They just went with the tide, went with all the pleasures that they could possibly, but then and like I said, they died in overdoses and accidents and suicides and cancers. Unforeseen, just one day you're fine, next day you're gone. And never come back, you know what I'm saying? So it's important that you learn who you are and what your abilities are and what your abilities aren't. What your talents are and what your talents aren't, so you know how to live this life. That's so important, I think. So this creature, I understood what it said about no more. but I haven't stopped. I'm not going to stop doing it. I don't want to. I just felt like I'm just letting down these people who I were with for years and liked them. I know they were wicked. No, I didn't like hang out with them after work or anything like that, but I was with them. You know, I laughed with them and stuff, and people were drinking and having a good time and music and, you know. But I just felt so helpless when they died, that they didn't know, like, have any idea why they were even alive to begin with, other than just this party, this like one continuous party, you know, that they were in. And I felt so helpless for that. And then I felt, well, at least maybe I could do this for them by praying for them, try to hold their soul back from getting into hell. Maybe I can do that. I'm sure they will be. I would say, if they see what I saw, like in that, and they see that they didn't have to, they're not going there. I'm telling you I'm telling you that's amazing. That would be so amazing. We have a story in our religion about a woman named Amelia, and she was visited. The kids were visited, and they were asking Mary about certain people. Were they going to go to heaven? They're going to go to hell? And then they asked about this woman named Amelia. And I always thought this story was like way out there. And Mary told Virgin Mary told these kids, Amelia was going to pay for her sins until the end of time. And I was thinking, everybody thought, what kind of a sentence is that? I can't imagine a sentence like till the end of time. Who even knows how long that is to begin with? But now that I saw what's waiting for them, if anybody saw what was waiting for them for eternity with these creatures, and they just got a sentence that was they're not going to go there. They're just going to pay for their sins till the end of time. They would jump up and down with joy. That's what I told my wife. If anybody could see what I saw, you would jump up and down with joy that you're not going there. All you got to do is just pay for your sins to the end of time. You know, that's not too bad now. I always thought it was totally way out there. You know, I thought that was the biggest sentence you could almost give anybody. But anyway, that's true. I mean. So anyway, I do want to tell you what it did before it left. And I think I got to most of the points of what it did when it was here. I explained to you what it said to me. And I told you it chose every single word fastidiously with fastidious care. I told you it's going to be prepared to offer you interesting options, especially people with a lot of hate in their heart. It's going to bewitch their spirit. I know that is so intelligent. It's so powerful. I mean, it was powerful enough to make the steps sound like they're getting crunched down and be invisible at the same time. That's the power that none of us know about. Slam doors as an invisible entity, that's like power that we don't have. This thing has power. Power to speak to me through to create a fifth dimension right here in my house and actually speak to me in a language that I can understand. That's power. And come and go through dimensions. That's amazing power. It's ruling an empire of hatred. That's what I think they wanted from the beginning with, because they didn't want, for some reason, to be with God. They wanted to break away. I thought they're so powerful. I thought, why should they, obey God anymore? There's no need for that. They're so powerful that they said, pride comes before the fall, and supposedly that's what happened. Now I believe that now so much, because I actually saw it, and I say to you, this was a gift, because this creature, it came up to its neck, and I could see that it couldn't. I don't believe it could go through all the way. So I felt that was a gift to me. This whole thing was a gift to me to try to explain this to your people, Jay, to anybody who's willing to listen to it. To maybe if we just changed one person's mind today, we did our job. Believe me. So this the power of this creature is something you don't want to get his hands on you, get snared in his nets, because according to what I understand, there are so many souls going there. Imagine. They must, if they have this much hatred in them, they probably, like him, will own it. You know what I mean? They'll think they'll deserve this kind of punishment. Just like him, he owned it. He thought it was just. He looked like he deserved it. He didn't have any like I said to you, if you came to visit me in a jail and I didn't do the crime, the first thing I would say to you is, get me out of here. I didn't do this. I don't belong here. But that's not what he owned it. So then he looks. So he's staring at me 100% confrontationally, straight into my face. I'm standing there, and I guess I must have been a little bit in shock, I guess would imagine, because I didn't run, and I think that was his intention. Like I said earlier, I didn't want to scare me. He wanted me to know what the message was. And so he looks at me, Jay, and he's still just staring at me with his black eyes right in my eyes. And I told you what it looked like, right? It had all these bony things coming out of his head. I guess they were horns, I imagine. They were really long, about 2.5 feet long, were probably the longest ones coming out of his forehead. If you look at that picture on john-egan.com, EAGAN.com, that's where you'll see an image of this as we're speaking about it. And so it as it came in, that's how it left. So it looked down at me and looked at the rosary beads I had on the glass table, because it was close to there, because it was filled the whole area from there to the wall. And he looked at me again, and then his face started to blow up, and it spit a giant saliva, came flying out of his mouth right onto my rosary beads. And then it looked back at me. I mean, this was three-dimensional. It wasn't transparent. It was just like if I'm standing there right in front of you. It wasn't like I was seeing a ghost and I was seeing through things. You know what I mean? It was right there. And I saw that saliva fly out of his mouth right onto my rosary beads, right? So it looked back at me like, there's nothing you could do about that, so don't even try. So it just looked at me, and as it left very slowly, like inch by inch, it was just staring me straight in the eye, backing up inch by inch, as it left, and until it's finally the end of its tips of its those horns, I guess, or coral. It looked like coral, passed into the blue flames. The blue flames started to dissipate. Then that air that looked like rippling started to go away, and then it just all kind of go away. Don't let me forget to tell you how I got it out of here. So then that was gone, and I stood there, and I'm thinking in my head, I have to remember this, because as an artist, I just have to remember this exactly. It's just burning that image into every part of its face, every inch of its face. Like it had a face, but it was in a blue chastisement of this flames, but it didn't burn its skin. That part I couldn't figure out. It's unfathomable. It had those horns coming out. It was 100% pure hatred. So I'm looking at my rosary bead as it left, and I'm still trying to remember exactly what it said. But I was still fixated at this saliva came out of its mouth. And like, it's another unfathomable thing is, Jay, how could something standing in a blue flame have like saliva in its mouth? That part I can't figure that out either. But it had whatever it had in its mouth. And so I stood there. I just stood there, I guess, like in shock for a while. And I'm looking at the rosary, and I started pushing with my finger just to see if there was like a sticky saliva on them. And because I saw it, it was there, and I started to touch them a little bit, pick them up a little bit more. Yeah, there's nothing on there, but it was there. I mean, it's so hard to explain. It spit on them. It wanted, it's hatred for prayer in any form. It bothers them, because I guess it does probably save souls, which is something they don't want. So I remember in the Bible, right? So it goes, and then I finally picking up my rosary beads, and I'm like, there's nothing, I can't figure this out. So it goes. So the next morning, I go to church. So I remember in the Bible, I mean, I read the Bible a lot. I remember Jesus said to us in the Bible, you could raise the dead in my name. You could heal the sick in my name. You could expel demons in my name. And I thought, well, if Jesus said that, I'm gonna take that to the bank, because
pretty solid source there.
What's that?
That's a pretty solid source of information there.
Yeah, you can take that to the bank of anything he says, So I go to the church. I receive my communion. 6:30 in the morning. I come back home. My wife keeps we have like a holy water in the kitchen, so I take the holy water, and I go through every room. I take the holy water, I sprinkle it everywhere I can on the walls. In Jesus Christ's name, I command you to leave these premises immediately. So I go into every room, the kitchen, the living room, downstairs in the basement where I first heard it come in the furnace room, in the closets, everywhere I can. I come upstairs, all through the living room and the kitchen, and every bathroom and every closet and every bedroom. When I finally get to the last bedroom, and I'm spraying the water around, saying, I command you to leave these premises in Jesus Christ's name immediately. The curtains and the blinds right by the window just swoosh like that. They just made a swoosh noise like that, and I felt it left. So I was like, it's gone. So, and I couldn't, like I explained this to you, Jay, I couldn't do that when it was first happening. I had to write it. and I had to draw it. So I'm drawing it and I'm writing it, and my wife's like, "What are you drawing? And why are you drawing like a demon like this?" She says, "Is that the thing that was here?" She goes to me. I go, "It's gone. Just that's the only thing I can say right now. It's gone." And when I'm done typing this out, you could read it, because every time I tried to explain this, the words stopped. I don't know why. For months I couldn't explain it to my wife, so I just kept typing it and typing it. And I just kept every single image that I saw, everything that I heard, I put on paper to make this book. The Devil is Real. That's at john-egan.com, EAGAN.com, 350-page ebook. So finally, when I said, "You could read this, and you could talk to me about it now," I think. And I had the picture drawn exactly the way what I saw, and I had the words on paper exactly what I saw, and that was the only time I was able to express it. Because every time she asked me, "Well, what was it? Well, what happened?" And the words got stuck in my throat. I can't explain that either. Well, why that happened, Jay? But that's how the whole thing happened. So, yeah, and since then. Since that swish of that creature leaving this house, there hasn't even been a bump in the night. So this has been like a year now. So I'm so pleased, that whatever, when it said, "I am many and many more wicked than I," I'm so pleased that that wasn't something else didn't come. You know what I mean? Because I haven't stopped praying. I'm not going to stop praying. That's going to be what I do. It's part of my whole being is saying these prayers and trying to save these souls, and anyone that I hear again who died, who I knew, or I felt that they died in a terrible state, I add them to the list. And so that's how it's going to be. And I know now that these creatures are real. They are so real, 100% real. I never would have, like I told you, I was a little bit skeptical before this happened to me. Even when my brother told me about that, I know he wouldn't lie to me. And I had no idea why would demons come for him after he died. He was like a young man. He had this. I told you, he's 180 degrees turned now. He's a religious person. He's trying to get his kids back into a religion. I believe. And then all these stories I used to hear, I was always skeptical about them. Over the years, like I said to you, this person trying to do this for attention. I didn't need this for attention. I already did what I did. I wrote my books, and I want to now do my artwork. Just to tell you why I brought up the fact that I'm an artist. A lot of my artwork won a lot of contests over the years. Actually, about 2 years ago, my wife was in charge of the Adoration Chapel at the church. And in the Adoration Chapel, when they put Jesus in the monstrance and they put it in the Luna, you have to burn candles. And when they burn down to about 2 or 3 inches, you throw them away and you put new candles up. So my wife was saving those candles. I was looking in the basement one day and I saw boxes there, and I looked to them and I was like, what are you doing with all these little 2-inch, 3-inch candles? What are you saving them for? Were you waiting for like a 45-minute blackout or something like that? What are we going to do with all these candles? So she goes, these candles kept Jesus company. They're so special. I didn't have the heart to throw them in the garbage. She goes, "You're an artist. Why don't you do something with them?" So I was like, okay, it's true. I never worked with wax. I could, for some reason, I have this little talent where, like, I could take a hammer and chisel and knock out a beautiful bust if I want. I've done that, and I've won a lot of art contests like that. And I'm very good with oil painting and just drawing sketches. I just have that little talent, So I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, that's true. Now let me think about this for a while. So I took all the candles, I melted them all down. It was like 50 pounds of candles into a block. I thought, these candles, they kept Jesus company all this time. Maybe they should take the image of Jesus. I carved out it came out so perfect. Because I haven't done this for a while. I was gonna do more of my artwork when I retired. I turned out writing actually books. But I just continue with my artwork. So it came down so beautiful. One of the papers, the church wanted me to bring it over to the church. I bring it over to the church. The papers heard about it. People were talking about it so much, they wanted to come over and take a picture of it and interview me. So it gets into one paper. From one paper, it just went to every single newspaper, every single magazine. Ripley's Believe It or Not calls me and says, we want to put this in a 2018 edition. And I was like, fine, you could do that. And we also want to buy it and put it in their museum. And I was like, you're not going to buy it. No, we buy artwork, they go. And, well, if you buy it, this is $1 million. So I don't think you're going to want to buy it. Right?
Yeah, that's all. No, just $1 million. It's fine. Splash in the pan.
I love the piece so much. I can't. Every day I look at it. I can't stop looking. I love it so much. I'm not ready to sell it. You know what I mean? They've called me 2 or 3 times after that. They've never come near my price, but yeah, they're still trying. But it's in their 2018 edition of Ripley's Believe It or Not. As the only one in the world created this way. And so many magazines. One time, my wife usually answers most of the calls when people call to do something like an interview or something, and she goes to me one day last year. The big boys are on the phone for you. And I go, who's the big boys? She goes, USA Today. I go, yeah, that is the big boys. You're right. So if you look, one of the pages at the website, john-egan.com, is a page of that bust of Jesus. So you could see it right there on one of the pages. It came out so beautiful. So USA Today came over. They interviewed me. They took pictures of it. I thought, okay, USA Today. What are they going to do? Put a little article in it. They put a whole page. I mean, for a secular magazine that goes all around the world. But like that's the first thing anybody quotes when they want to, add weight to what they're saying. Well, USA Today said this, and USA Today, you know what I mean? That they would put a full page of that in color in the newspaper that goes all around the world. I was very happy and pleased with that. So that's why I brought up the fact that I'm an artist, so you could see that whether with the creature that came here is what I depicted on the cover of the book that you see when you go to John-Egan, EAGAN.com. So I think that's an important thing to know about me, that I'm not a crazy person. You know what I mean? That just really, really, really did happen. I have a very analytical mind. I never do drugs. I never, I don't even take any medication. Which is a nice thing, that I could have hallucinated from, or taken LSD. I've never taken any of that. And then the fact that the three of us were involved in this aberration of what this creature was doing, all at the same time, that's impossible. I mean, for anybody for 3 people to have the exact same hallucination at the exact same time, that's impossible. Any psychiatrist in the world will tell you that. It's impossible to happen. So it's amazing. I tell you, Jay, this was a gift. I feel like this was a gift because it didn't harm me. It looked like it wanted to. It looked like I said, he could only get his head through that wall of blue flame. And blue, like, why was, like, this is another thing that's unfathomable. Why blue flames? Every book I've ever looked in, where there's demons and they're in hell, it's all like red flames, you know what I mean? And the demon is red, he's holding a pitchfork or something like that, and his flames are red. This was a complete wake-up call to me to see that it was blue, and it was a he, it was a male, it wasn't a female. I imagine it must be female there. I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know any more than what I saw, but this was male. You know what I mean? This was, I could see that it was a male demon. I don't know if it had male genitalia or anything like that. I could only see up to its, it wouldn't let me see anywhere through that. I know it has an empire back there, built on hatred. So that was the only thing that really was, it was amazing, and I felt it was a gift. It had a methodology, this thing, and it had a system. It was so intelligent. It was so powerful. And I imagine back in the day, it used it for what's good, but now it uses it for what's, for whatever it wants to do. It doesn't want to do what God wants to do. It's just like so many unfathomable things that happen in between. But what happened between, like, I pray a lot about why would this creature hate God, like 100% hate God. Like, I can't get that fixed into my head. And we pray every day. I pray about what happened between this creature and God, that it now hates it. I mean, this creature created it. He's our creator. Every single one of us, because this creature, this God, this creator is infinite. Every single one of us were created in his mind. Like when we say God always was and always will be, but we really always was, and we always will be too, because we were in his head right down to the last piece of DNA when he created us back before time even began. So we were in his head. Everything that's created was in his head. It doesn't really have a head, because like my nephew say, when God sticks his head out through the clouds, I'll believe. And he says, I'm God, then I'll believe. And I tried to tell him, God doesn't have a head. If he had a head, that would limit him. You know what I mean? He's not like sitting on a throne in heaven, like doing nothing all day. A throne would limit him. He's an infinite creator. Like, because something is infinite, like when you go to heaven with when you're in like you won't be in full presence of God, but you'll be closer to Him because you're never going to really take God and put Him in a box and go, well, this is what God is. You're never going to be able to do that because He's infinite. We're finite. We don't even understand the word infinite. If something is infinite, even the surface is infinite. You're not even, for all of eternity and ever, you're not even going to be able to scratch the surface of what God is. But you're going to see His wonderful beautifulness of His creations and His love for you. And you're going to get graces and you're going to understand them better and better. You're never going to understand God fully for all of eternity in heaven. That's how infinitely, you think big when you think God. Just think big. In any way, shape, or form. Just think big.
Well, so you've anointed your house, and the demon is gone to wherever he's going.
Yeah.
The
Whoever
ethereal
somebody else
plane.
is praying for souls, I guess.
Yeah. So let's just give everybody more information about how they can find you, find your book, find your social media. I know you've said your website a few times, john-egan.com.
Yeah.
So can they follow you on social media? Do you have Twitter, Facebook, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook as John Egan. I'm on Twitter as Spiritual11. John-Egan.com. That's where you can get the book right now. I'm not ready to. I have other books that are on like Amazon. The only problem with Amazon, especially if you sold a lot of books, like I did, How to Pick a Beautiful Woman. I've sold. I don't even want to tell the people how many I sold. Every time I do that, they ask me to borrow money from me.
We should definitely, I think, for some of our listeners, talk about How to Pick Up Beautiful Women. Where can they pick that up? Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. The only problem is when you sell a lot of books, like Amazon, it's good in the beginning, but then when you sell so many books that so many people now, they see that they could sell your book, they buy it, they read it, they understand what they need to understand. They could sell it for half price or 1/3 the price. So it's like thousands and thousands of people selling my book right where I sold for all these years that I sold for a fraction of the cost of what the book, you know what I mean? So it's still selling very well, but it's selling to everybody who buys it and then resells it again, you know. So I don't want to do that with this book yet. I'm just going to let people who want to just come to john-egan.com. The book is a beautiful thing because it starts off with it's explaining, which I felt when like I said to you earlier, Jed, I met these people who didn't know how to live, didn't know themselves. It starts with the whole idea of knowing thyself, you know what I mean, and knowing what your talents are and knowing what you're good at, because there's no sense in you trying to do something that you don't have a talent for. Yeah, everybody is given talents. Like, just everybody was given talents. My dad was a truck driver, but he was so loved by people. When he died, there was lines for blocks to come and see him when he died. He's just so loved by his talent. Was just so, his personality was just like bigger than life. And everybody has this kind of, you know, it's not like one person has all the talent and somebody else doesn't have any. God gave all of us talents, and we're supposed to use them, and we're supposed to know them. But the thing is, we're supposed to know where they are inside us. I know my talent for artwork and writing. I know those talents, and I go there constantly, you know what I mean, to create things with. And because I was just getting this little talent, this little thing in my head that I could use when I feel like doing something in artwork or writing. And everybody has these talents. So you have to know and know yourself and know where these talents lie and know where they don't lie. That's even as important as knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. Knowing what you're not good at is as important in your life as what you're good at. So this book teaches you to begin with of knowing yourself. And then, so you can realize who you are and what direction you're supposed to take. And not just go along with the tide. Like most of these people, they were like ships in the ocean without a rudder. Anywhere the wind would blow them. You know, do drugs, do alcohol, you know, just drive around drunk, you know, all these things that they did. Smoke like 3 packs of cigarettes a day. You just went with a party every single night. You know, it's just not, that's not what you're supposed to, that's not what this life is about. You're supposed to, all you have to really do, Jay, you just keep God number one. You know this. Just keep God number one in your life. You could have everything you want. You could have a big house. You could have a beach house. You could have all the cars you want. He doesn't care about that. As long as he's number one, and you keep him number one, you keep focused on him. Every day you pay homage to him. You pray to him. You keep him, you know, whatever the 10 commandments are. Try to stay in, you know, try not to break those things if you can. And head in his direction in your life. Everything else will fall into place. You know, like I said, he doesn't care what you have or how much money you have. That doesn't bother him one bit. As long as he's number one, that's all. That's all he needs to be, is number one in your life, and you'll live your life properly. And this book teaches you how to do that and how to know thyself. And then it goes into, of course, this apparition. Every detail of this apparition is in the book, because a lot of people now, when they buy the book, they could communicate with me with john-egan.com, ask me questions. I put so many details in the book that they could see in the details more than I saw when it was actually here, and they tried to ask me questions, through that website, and I answered them, and I enjoyed those questions a lot. So that's interesting about the book. That's how it's going to be right now. It's going to be an ebook right now, and that's where the way to get it. And of course, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter, and I'm on most of the social media out there. That's important to be this. It's nowadays. There's no other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the millenniums. That's where they get all their information now. It's not like our parents. They got the news. They watch the news, and they get buy the newspaper. You know what I mean? They sit at home reading the newspaper with their coffee. That's not how it is, say, with the millenniums. They're all their information they get online, So that's important to be there now. That's what's global communication. I mean, I love the technology we have. It's just, like I said earlier, it's almost like it's working like a neutron bomb in a way. It's killing from the inside out if you don't know how to use it. You know what I'm saying? If you're not using it properly. It's a shame. But anyway, that's, Between Love and Hate, The Devil is Real, john-egan.com. And if there's any other thing you want to ask me, I'll be happy to explain it, Jay.
That's that wraps it up for now, I think, because that's a lot of information. We talked about. I told you we go as long as we could, and I said, we can go up to 2 hours, and you're like, I don't know if we can do that. We've been in an hour and a half now, and I don't feel any worse for that.
Me either. You were great, Jay. I've been interviewed by so many people, but you were just great. I appreciate that so much. It was a very relaxing interview. I enjoyed it so much. It felt that we really, like I said earlier, if we just got one person to think about their life at this point, and maybe redirect them away from, get a rudder on that ship. You know what I mean? Just don't go in the ocean and let the wind blow you wherever it's going to blow you. Just get a rudder on there. You know what I mean? Then we did our job today, I think.
All right, John.
Yep. There we go. That was a really awesome interview with John Egan. It was a lot of information. It might have been super offensive to some people. And I don't really care if it offended you. I'm sorry. We'll have guests on that will offend you. That's a thing. But now I do want to retry this so we can go on Facebook Live too. Give me about 10 minutes and we'll try that again. But I am Jay. Thank you for watching Vanishing Gates. And that was John Egan. Really cool dude. So, hope to catch you guys in 10 more minutes or so we can do this all over again. Or not. We can just keep beating this dead pony.